like sucking, but I ain't gay.
Legit bad podcast.
Fuck those honkies.
Welcome to Costco. I love you.
He really knows how to suck a wiener.
Started up.
Cool.
Welcome back to Legit Bat. I'm the fuck the intro. I'm Joe. Jen's here. Ben and Lene are here this time. And I fucked that up too. I was going to have the cheers. There we go. Wait. Hang on. There.
Jazz hands.
Yeah. Good to have you guys back. Especially on a weekday. I did want to mention too that the rest of this month, the shows are going to be a bit spotty because of the time of year it is for my job. But we'll definitely do one on Sundays, except Christmas, because that's a Sunday, right? Yeah.
It is, and we will be drunk and kidless. So
Definitely, because I have the next day
we
off.
won't be
so
doing a show.
I will be getting drunk. And what else? Oh, so we'll start back up with the regular shows in January. We are going to try to do more Planet Retard reports on Rockfin. And this next Sunday, we have Bags Draws coming on. He's the one that did our logo you see behind us. And maybe Joe from OBDM. I haven't heard back yet. So we'll keep you up to date on that. But if you don't see a show every fucking couple days, that's why. It's because I'm working for real, making actual money.
You know, a lot of people in our community have been posting that they're taking time off to just for the holidays in general. So I think it's acceptable.
Yeah.
People can deal with it. I'm sure other people are busy too.
Oh my God, Joe.
Joe
Oh.
helps make Christmas happen. I mean,
Your golden beet chalice. That is amazing.
Yeah.
is it
No,
a
this is
mule in it?
It's a Moscow Mule, but I'm drinking wine out of it because I'm fancy.
I did not know that's
Hell
what
yeah.
that was called. Learn something new every day. Look at that.
Well, you haven't drank in like 300 years, so I know it seems like it's been that long, huh?
It really doesn't. I was thinking about that today. I was talking to my coworker and we were talking about just the different vices that everybody has. And I'm like, yeah, I got a couple. I've often said if I have kratom, nicotine, and coffee, I can survive weeks on just that. And
Yeah, but you take one of those away, and Ben just
I
shrivels
fall
up
apart,
like a grape.
man. Yep, I'm a puddle without that's. I need those three. But no, drinking, like it's almost been 2.5 years. And to tell you the truth, pretty much after the first year, you kind of stop counting. Like every now and again, it comes around inside my brain, and I'm like, oh shit! Like I'm moving
That's
on
because you're
fucking
not a
3
real
years.
alcoholic. You count
Yeah.
every goddamn day if you're an AA member. You count every day and make sure you post about it on Facebook too, just so everybody knows you're still sober. And you're like, oh, I feel sorry for that guy or girl.
Yeah.
I don't want
The
to
guy that had 4 years of crazy drinking in his 4-year Navy career, and then 30 years later he's still showing up to AA saying I'm an alcoholic. Never had anything bad happen. Didn't have that long of a stint drinking, but will show up to say that he is an alcoholic 30 years later. I'm like, all right, well, that's what gets you.
Are you
through.
sure at this point? Like if I go 2 years without drinking, I'm not an alcoholic anymore in my eyes.
Absolutely not.
If I go a week without drinking, I'm like, I'm not an alcoholic.
All right, let's do this.
All right, anyway, let's get to the show. We got Mikey from KGUP FM Presents, and I think this is one of the only people we've talked to who's a real radio person. Maybe besides Monica Perez. I think she did real radio.
Oh, I'm
By real
hardly
radio.
not radio.
Oh, come on. It was realer than we do. But Mikey,
Yeah.
tell us about yourself and your show and how you got started in this whole thing.
Well, my name's Mikey J. I host the KGUP Presents. I own and operate a internet radio station called KGUP FM Emerge Radio. That started in 2012, and I used to do podcasting before it became a radio station, but the podcast was called The Great Unknowns Presents. I can't stand it, but I used to interview music artists, and then in 2018 I went back and did like a television version of interviewing music artists, and it was on Indie TV on oh god, I forgot the name of the network, Universe Network, and that ran for 2 seasons, and then COVID happened. And in 2020, we were supposed to open up our radio and television studio up in North Hollywood, but COVID just, we were supposed to launch on April 1st. And April 19th, everything
What
got locked down.
a
Yeah.
bummer. Oh my
Yeah.
God. Okay, I got to hear about this.
God,
Like,
I do.
what was your reaction as soon as like all of this popped off and that happened?
Well, you know what? I kind of foresaw it. Like, I was watching all the videos from like China and all the stuff in Wuhan back, and I was watching everything happen as early as October of 2019. So I knew about Event 201.
Event 201.
Yeah. And so around February, I was like, it's coming to America. It's gonna be here. We're gonna be in a lockdown, and people I work with are like, it's gonna blow over. It's just, it's nothing.
That's
We
what I
have the
said.
best medicine. And then, March 19th rolls around, and my friend was like, holy shit, you were right. And I was like, yeah, you need to get it to the store and stock up. And because I knew this shit was gonna go down. And
You need toilet paper.
That's
Yeah.
no, that's the thing though, is that we talked about this with the gas. They invoked their own hysteria by saying you needed to go get this because of the issue. And instead what it did is all the people that knew they didn't have anything to worry about actually needed to go get that shit and couldn't anymore, which then just made the problem all the worse. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
self-fulfilling prophecy. They're like, there's going to be a shortage, or there is a shortage, and everybody runs out, and then there's a shortage. Oh my God, look at that. It's
Yeah,
magic.
like we've been using toilet paper and Clorox wipes since I don't know. We've been adults.
I wiped with napkins during
So
that time.
when I go to the store and I see people who I hope use toilet paper, but have literally never given a shit about a Clorox wipe a day in their life, are hoarding it. I'm like, fuck you, dude. Your house is not going to get clean.
Like, wait,
they-
you're
I can
getting
tell.
Clorox wipes?
Clorox wipes aren't going to help.
You went from your first bar of soap and Clorox wipes in like 3 days. You're not
Well,
fooling
and
anybody.
they went from like not a literal hurricane, but very close to what people do in a literal hurricane, where they go and get all the toilet paper, all the water, all the beer, all of the hand sanitizer, everything that you need to stay clean and shit right for the next however long. Dude, I had one single 8-pack of Charmin Extra Strong. It's my favorite one. And I had that for no shit, like, well, actually shit, yeah, but for like 3 months. Because the only people that needed to wipe during that time were me and Lonnie. And I was like, look, use less toilet paper, because if you have to wash your hands, you're gonna do it anyway. So I can't go to the store right now and get toilet paper. Just don't be an asshole with the toilet paper. And he's like, Dad, my shits are this big. Like, I'm not worried about it. I'm like, okay, good.
They're clean breaks. I use one square. They're clean breaks. Anyway, sorry, Mike. We derailed you. Anyway, you were going to open right before then, and then.
Oh, well, yeah. We, 3 weeks into the pandemic, I mean, we were just like, we're sick of watching the news. And then a week into after the pandemic, we're like, all right, we're both feeling like shit. And so we were like, all right, let's just turn off the news. It's just fear mongering. It was creating anxiety. And then, we enjoyed it for what it was. I mean, we go bike riding, but then, we go to the Santa Monica beach, and literally like these military helicopters were just flying across. And it was like, holy shit, this looks like a fucking movie. And cops were on horseback, and they were telling everybody to get off the beach and like, get out of here.
Whoa.
Yeah.
We
And
didn't see
then,
that shit up here in our part of California. But I
Yeah,
mean, that was slightly to be expected. And we've
That's
talked about
intense.
that ad nauseum on the show, about the difference between where we're at and down south. But at the time that it broke out, I was probably about 4 hours from where you were in Lemoore, California, on a Navy base. And I mean, shit started going sideways March 13th. They had closed down all the schools. It was within the next day, March 14th, that everybody was going to Costco, stocking up on all their shit. And it was by the end of that night that I had decided, you know what? If the kids aren't going to be in school and they're going to lock everything down because it's a federal base, which is going to be the last one to have everything lifted, I'm going up north. There's I got nothing down here. There's no reason for it.
Wow.
They really
that's
fucked
crazy.
you guys over down there. Holy shit.
What was crazy, I went up to my studio because we were meeting for like the last time. We're all wearing masks because we actually thought it was legit, and
Sure.
but as soon as we crossed over into North Hollywood past the mountain divide, it was like nothing was happening. Everybody was driving around and going to work, going to the store. Everybody was shopping. I was like, what the fuck this is like the Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
And I get to the studio. I was like, dude, have you looked around? Like nobody's acting like anything's happening. And when I went back home, as soon as you cross that, the Hollywood divide to into Hollywood proper, I mean, it was like a ghost town. Nobody was on the road. Hardly anybody was on the freeways. It was just really freaking surreal. And I was like, oh my God. So, people were just sitting at home, just watching the news, being scared to
Right.
death to go outside.
Oh yeah.
It was just weird. And
Yeah,
then
people. I remember seeing back then a couple like older people on my Facebook were like, self quarantine day 1 with a heart. And I'm like, what? And even back then, I'm like, are you sick? You're just staying inside. And obviously,
Yeah.
you don't get a word like self quarantine unless you're sitting in front of the TV watching CNN
Right.
all day. Because I never heard
Hashtag
that before in
quarantine
my
to
life.
Save lives.
No.
Yes, it saves grandma.
yeah, it's a trip to look back on everything because a week later, my wife's restaurant that she worked at, because she did hospitality and coordinated events, so she made really good money. And then they shut their doors and laid everybody off, and then all of a sudden she was on unemployment, and I was like, we need to get the fuck out of here. Like, even though our apartment complex reduced the rent by half, I was like, we don't know how long the unemployment's going to last, or if anything's going to go back to normal. So I was like, let's move to Texas, and so we were out of there by April 10th. We were on the
Oh
road.
shit!
Ah,
Yeah.
Damn, you learned
So-
quick. I'm still
Like
here.
And-
3 weeks.
Yeah. And so I was still teaching up until December, when I took a full-time position in Texas, because I was like, they wanted to keep me until May of 2021. I was like, I don't want to bypass any possible positions that's going to pay more. So, because
Right.
I wasn't making as much as I do here in Texas. I make more money here, which is nuts.
And
Doing
the taxes
teaching.
are probably a little bit better over there too.
It's nice not having the state tax.
How much is it to
Going-
register a car
Yeah.
in Texas?
It's actually cheap. Like
Really?
No
like
surprise
$100.
there.
$100 a year.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
I remember it
Dude.
being like $75 a year here a long time ago. Now my car that's 11 years old costs like $140 to register.
Whoa. I
And
think that's
Yeah,
what I
mine's
pay now
$220.
is 75.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I was going to say those southern states are amazing for that. When we moved to Jacksonville in 17, we had purchased basically an 8-month-old from manufacture date Sentra. Well, the way that Florida does it is that if it's registered in the state, they just do the registration all year long on the manufacture date. So like rather than a fiscal year, where in California they start sending it out, pretty close to the beginning of the year, we would get the registration form right in August. We went and paid for 2 years because they did 2-year registration, $78. It was
Wow.
$36 or no, $39 a year. And you could pay for it in 2-year increments and get a sticker for 2 years ahead of time. I've never seen anything that cheap when it came to the registration. Granted, the economy was also a lot better in 2017 than it was in 2020 and 2021, but
You must
Still,
be a
no.
Trump supporting racist if you say that. It was
God
just
damn
as
it.
good as it is now, and gas was just the same price. Racist.
really like the prices.
Well,
Oh.
I mean, California's run by the mafia, so
I know.
mean, they just gouge everything for
It's the
protection.
Chinese mafia. It's Gavin Newsom.
I like China.
Wait.
China.
Anyway,
China.
Yeah. So did you go further down, like more rabbit holes after that then? I mean, after the whole initial great awakening of 2020, when a lot of people were like, wow, this is fucked up. Did you go down other holes you haven't gone down before? No pun intended.
Absolutely. I just had way more time to investigate stuff that I had always wanted to, like flat earth, for instance. I mean, I went in that deep rabbit hole like you wouldn't believe. Like, I hardly slept because I was trying to debunk the whole model. And I was like, I was like one of those globers that are on these like, channels that, just talk shit, but I couldn't really find any real evidence that supported the globe. I was like, there is absolutely nothing that I can show that it's actual definitive proof. Everything that's shown from NASA is all CGI. It's all images. I try to, visiting a university to look through a telescope. I mean, they just project lasers and they collect data. There's no actual person looking through a lens to physically see something in space. It's all just an infrared laser, and only thing that comes back is in ones and zeros, and then it's transcribed into an image based on the numerical data. And I was like, they could just make anything up.
I got
Yeah,
well,
we just talked about that the other day. Sorry, Ben, but we talked about that the other day, where everything comes down to these long equations and mathematics that 99% of us don't know a fucking thing about. And that's the proof of a lot of these things they talk about, not just flat Earth, but a lot of scientific stuff, is these equations that are 2 paragraphs long that you're never going to figure out. You just have to believe them. They say, this is what this says. It sounds a lot like the Catholic Church in speaking Latin, right? They're like, no, we know what this says. Only we know this Latin, so we'll just tell you what it means, and you just
only
believe
the
us.
clergy.
Right.
Yes.
And
Well,
then
priests.
outside of every university has these like giant telescopes, they have one for the tourists. So you go on tour, they tell you all the stuff, all the science that they do behind the scenes, and then you go outside and there's this like, yay big telescope, maybe $1,000 telescope, and
That's the
then you can
technical
actually see something through it. You can see the quasars, you can see the Milky Way flying by. But I always thought that was weird. It's like, how do we actually see the Milky Way when we're a part of it? And it's transversing across the sky, but it doesn't make any like real sense when you think about it. It's like, well, wouldn't all the planets just be in that strip that you show across the sky? That
well, yeah, you would
Oh,
think so.
unless
And if
they're different distances.
You can see the Milky Way with the naked eye too if you're in somewhere isolated enough.
yeah,
I've seen it before in the mountains. It is weird though. I agree.
yeah. When
and you would,
I
good.
when I was in Idaho, when I was 12 and 13, we sleep under the stars and watch everything, and it was very cool. You could actually see the aurora borealis and the Milky Way and everything the way it's meant to be seen, not you know hidden just like in the city.
It's
What were you gonna say,
wildly
Ben?
different. Every time you go out in somewhere where there's no light pollution, it looks like a different fucking sky. It looks like you're on an alien planet. Ben, sorry, we've cut you off several times. Go ahead.
You're fine. I'm guilty of it all the time. No, so 3 things. One, I came up with at least a good argument for the globe model that I want somebody who is flat Earth to explain. Now, here's my. I should preface that, and I know that I speak for at least Joe, that I don't really care if it's flat or a globe. I just
Yeah.
also know that whatever it is, we're not being quite told everything about it. And you can point to Antarctica and a bunch of other things. The pole star, if you take a time lapse, it spins directly around. There's plenty of arguments for a flat realm or a slightly domed realm or whatever.
Yeah.
But I came up with a good argument for that. I was going to ask you that in a minute. But the one question that I had kind of goes a little bit farther back from what Joe said. Before all of this really popped off in 2020, were you already kind of geared in the direction that now you find yourself in the thought process and the conspiracy levels, or should I say lack of conspiracy levels that have now popped off and kind of been proven true? Did that really like have a huge impact on you like it did a lot of other people in the way of kind of opening that third eye? I only asked that because probably 5 months in is when we started the podcast. And for probably the next 6 months, a solid year into the pandemic, I was still I was still believing everything that I had believed for the last 30 years. And it wasn't until I was speaking to a lot of the people on here where I was like, you know what? I don't think I know as much as I think I know. And then my third eye went wide open, and I was like, oh fuck, it's all possible, and it could all be bullshit all at the same time. I don't know what to believe. So
It's like
I wanted
AA.
to get
The
your
first,
take on
the
that.
first step is admitting that you have a problem. You're a moron and you don't know anything.
Right.
Not you specifically, but yes, you specifically as well.
Me
What do you think, Mike?
specifically.
I mean, I think I went through stages of waking up, you know, like 9/11 was like probably one of my first things that I guess I could go back and say the moon landing I never really quite believed. It just seemed a little fishy. And then 9/11 happened, and then that opened my eyes. I'm like, well, what about Building 7? I mean, it clearly went down and had nothing to do with the planes and, you know, the Pentagon, the you know, I can't remember the other flight that went down, that there was no evidence of a plane at all. But, you know, when I got into journalism, I started to realize that everything had a side. Like I couldn't just work at LA Times without being a hardcore screaming liberal, you know, Democrat. And I was like,
Right.
You'd
I
be
didn't
vegan
even,
right now if you worked there.
I was naive, you know, I just thought, oh, I just wanted to report the news, you know, but it wasn't like that. I had to basically, you know, pledge my allegiance to Obama and, you know, and just be a lunatic. And I was like, I don't like Obama. I don't like any of these presidents. I didn't like Bush,
Heresy.
you know.
Yeah.
So I was just, you know, I was always kind of like hardcore independent, and, you know, Ron Paul, yeah, you know, for Ron Paul and stuff. And I think just little by little, like I took a philosophy class and he told us about Edward Bernays, and I was like, holy shit. So everything that's on television is literally propaganda for us to consume something or to drive us to a certain thought process. And, you know, and then I started to look at television a lot differently, and like, oh my God, I mean, you know, just everything is just mind programmed. But really, I think everything just tied together and made a full circle once I discovered that, you know, flat earth. It was, the whole reason behind it was to hide the existence of God, because the further away that you think, I mean, if we're a speck of dust in this like infinite universe, I mean, how could God exist and be able to control everything that's happening in this universe? And so, you know, even parts of my life, I mean, I questioned it. I couldn't, I questioned the existence of a creator, or just, you know, because I had no evidence other than science to prove that he doesn't exist. So, but I had this like gut feeling that there was a creator. I just didn't know how to explore that. So when I did discover that flat earth was a thing and there was actual scripture that supported it, and I was like, oh my God, it all makes sense now. And that's why I do call myself a flat earther, and I do believe in that. And I don't know, I mean, I mean, I went through most of my life just believing in space. I loved Star Wars. I loved everything that was science fiction. So it was very hard for me to grasp that whole concept, because I wanted space to be real, you know.
Right.
Yeah, it is one of those things that's so ingrained in you as a kid, like even Christian kids. Like we grew up super Christian. My parents had access to the same scripture you're talking about that pretty clearly alludes to not necessarily a flat earth, but a dome, a firmament, which probably wouldn't work that well on a ball. But they had access to all the same shit. And I have to give Josh Monday props for his show. I listened to one of his,
Oh,
and he's
yeah.
a Christian guy. He did a whole series of shows on the biblical nature of flat earth, and it ties in. Like if you're not a Bible person, it won't fucking matter, but if you're a Bible person, you think the earth is a ball, go listen to a couple of those shows and tell me what you think. But yeah, the how ingrained it is when you're a kid uh was weird for me too, because I'd say the moon landing was like my Santa Claus. You know, people talk about Santa Claus being the first conspiracy theory that snaps you out because you're like, oh my God, he's not real. That was, I never grew up with Santa Claus. So the moon
Right.
landing was probably the first one I actually looked into on my own and was like, this is
Well, that
fucking weird.
Dateline
And that
special
was,
that we watched when we were kids, it was the first time that on a major TV network, I think it was either Dateline or 2020. You can still find it on YouTube, but it was the first national broadcast questioning the idea of the moon landing. And I remember that was the first time where it all made sense the way that they had laid it out. And I remember thinking like, the first thought was, well, yeah, wasn't this years and years ago? Like, if we did it back then, why haven't we gone back? My little brain, that was the only thing that I could think of. 9/11, straight over my head. I was all about rah, let's go kill them. Let's, fuck them up. They killed our people. When 9/11 happened, I was almost 11. And at the time, I wasn't thinking conspiratorially, but to the credit back then, I wouldn't say it was as fucked up as it is now. You mentioned the whole everything is propaganda. So I assume that you have delved into the revision of the 2012 Smith-Mundt Act from the 1940s.
Yeah.
So the original one, obviously we know that this isn't true, but they couldn't be as blatant about it. So
Right.
the original provision was that you could spread propaganda for the war efforts in other countries, but you couldn't propagandize your own people. 2012, the revision says, yeah, we can do it to our own people.
Well, they basically just took the part out that said they couldn't, from what I understand. So I actually got fact checked on that on Instagram. I got dinged again the other day. We might be short for this world soon on Instagram. But, no, I got dinged because I put a meme up that said, "Oh, you think the government isn't lying to you?" And it cited, the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act, and I got fact checked, and it was like, no, this document. How did they put it? They always put it really vague. It's like, no, it's actually not that. And that was the fact check. They basically said, no, that's not true.
And they're totally able to do that because of that exact act. They were just like, oh, no, let me propagandize you a little more.
Let me prove your point by removing this post.
Yeah.
I mean, think about the changes just from what we see on propaganda levels on social media. In 2009, when Facebook first came out, it was a whole different fucking platform. Well, it didn't come out in 2009. Sorry, that's when I joined it. But like even MySpace before that and a lot of the other social media platforms, when Facebook, when I first joined it, was a whole different fucking thing than it is now. And
yeah, back when we called it your wall, not your timeline. Remember that?
Like
way back
in the last 10 years since that modernization, it is so incredibly blatant. And even still, I still bought into the majority of it. I was all about being a conservative Republican and all this stuff. And once, everybody says once you see it, you can't unsee it. So now working backwards in the timeline, yeah, the whole 9/11 thing, we did a whole special on that. I think within like 2 weeks of starting the show back with Ryan.
Yeah,
shout out to Ryan from Games World. And I remember hearing all of this stuff that people were talking about who had been in the game a lot longer than I had, picking these things apart, listening to Corey Hughes from FKN talking about the JFK assassination and then working backwards in history through World War II. All of these different items that I had never questioned in a million years all started to go, oh, fuck. And then it all started to make sense. And I went, my whole life's a lie. All right. Yep. Fuck.
So Ben, get to your questions you had from about flat Earth, the 3 globe things you had, or whatever you're talking about.
Well, no, I just had three things to ask him. The other one is a thing about the moon landing, but it's a new theory that I heard. But no, okay. So my question for a flat earther is to explain this. Military snipers use a book called the Dope Book. It's data on previous engagements. And what they do is they do all of the wind and everything like that, and they write it down based on these previous engagements, and they can look back. Typically, they use the same rifle. There's at a certain range, and with a normal sniper rifle, not something that is just massive and ridiculous, but just a normal sniper rifle, at a particular range, they have to take into account something called the Coriolis effect. Now, the Coriolis effect is the idea, and I can't do it on the screen here, so I'll try to explain as best I can. It's the idea that, let's say you were looking at the top of the Earth, and just for shits and giggles, it's moving sideways or whatever, according to the helioistic model, but let's just say that it's turning like this for frame of reference. Yeah. If you had 2 snipers standing on the top, and the Earth is spinning, at a particular distance, you have to take in the rotation of the Earth to when that bullet hits its target. So if the Earth is rotating and you're shooting into the rotation, a lot of times your shots will go long because the bullet is traveling against the rotation, meaning sometimes the target will pass underneath. So sometimes if you're, for instance, on this part of the curve and they're on this part of the curve, you would have to shoot lower down, because by the time it hits, that target's going to be up next to where the bullet is going. The
Are you
opposite
talking about
direction
the
of
Coriolis effect? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. So I heard a lot of people talking about that, but continue with what you were
So
saying.
the opposite is that you're shooting with the rotation, which means that now the bullet is traveling with the Earth's rotation, meaning it'll drop farther. So in that case, you have to shoot higher so that by the time the bullet hits with the Earth's rotation, you're actually hitting the target. Now, this is something that they've actually had to do. I think the longest, well, actually, this is some years ago, so I think they broke it by now, but there was a gentleman that took a ShyTac 408 intervention, and it's a very long-range,
Nobody
powerful
knows what
sniper
that
rifle.
is.
It's a very long-range, powerful sniper rifle and cartridge. I was just explaining it. And basically what he did was he was able to hit an 8 or 10-inch target 3 times at 2.1 miles. At that distance, they had to take into effect the Coriolis, because by the time that that bullet was going to hit the target, it actually would have moved about 3 to 5 feet in rotation with the Earth for him to actually hit it. So this popped into my head the other day because, again, I don't really care which one it is. But that popped in my head and I went, I would like to have somebody who's a flat earther actually, if they have a good argument or can explain it, I would love to hear it. So that's the first question.
Until I was until I would actually do that myself, I couldn't even comment on it because I've never heard anybody talk about it. I used to know someone who was a sniper, and he never spoke about that having to, the Coriolis effect and have to adjust for it. I mean, I was an expert marksman, but I think the furthest we ever fired was like 330 yards.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
So
I don't think it
Moral
kicks in
Bob-
until about like a mile and a half.
I've heard Moral
Yeah.
Bob talk about this too. He might have more info on that, but put that away because I'm trying to gather some points like that we can have, because Bob
Okay.
wants to do another like flat Earth debate and actually have like some bullet points this time and be
Okay.
not retarded about it like our last debate. But so yeah, mark that one down. But I know they have. This is the problem I have, is that both sides have explanations for everything, and I know there's an explanation for the Coriolis effect. I don't remember what it is, but
Okay.
You'd have to prove that the Coriolis effect is real and necessary.
so
though,
that I think
first
that
and
is
foremost.
I think that
Right.
is the thing. And
That's the thing, is
again,
they've actually had to use that on engagements.
I know, but you're talking about propaganda. They've used that. Okay, well, let's see it. Like, I mean, we have to see it in real life.
I'm
This is
just
a lot
playing.
of flat
Yeah,
earther
I'm just
stuff.
being
Okay,
very.
all right,
objective.
fair enough,
I'm not
fair
a
enough.
flat around earther, and like you, Ben, I literally don't give a shit, and I think this is an organic playground for God. So I don't think that this is necessarily flatter around. It's no big deal, but if anything, I think it's more of like a realm, and it's probably flat.
It's
and the round
malleable.
thing, it could be round if someone perceives it to be round. Maybe, I'm not sure, but
I mean,
something like the Coriolis effect, it seems like the same as they're like the Earth rotates at this angle
Well, I think that
and this
is the.
speed, and it's the same kind of spacey information that they're giving
I
us.
think that
So
is
I'm
kind
not
of
saying it's right or wrong though.
the basis of the flat earther stuff is they go off observation, which I respect. So that's Moral Bob's big thing. He said, I'll believe whatever I can observe. So if he hasn't observed the
fair.
Coriolis effect and done it himself, he's going to be like, bullshit. I know his answer to that.
yeah.
So what was the distance, Ben? What was the distance they were shooting at?
2.2 miles, you said?
Yeah, 2.1 was the target. I think they've broken that now. And I don't think that they have to take it into effect, because most of the time what they'll do is they'll just adjust their scopes, and they adjust for windage and things of that nature at longer distances of a mile or so. And then once you get up to a certain level, that's when you actually have to start taking it into effect.
So I think that is one of the things I remember now that I think about it, is that at that distance, the curvature would be such that the bullet would run into the earth or something
That's
like
what
that.
that's what I was
Now-
explaining.
Yeah,
It would
that's what-
basically hit the ankles.
But if they were to be able to actually zero in on the target they're trying to hit, that means there isn't that much curvature to it, because they wouldn't be able to see it. You know what I mean?
Well, it is also a projectile. You do have to have some.
And there's drop. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the weight, and it's not there's no propulsion behind it. It's the single propulsion is what's pushing it. At that distance, something's just going to naturally drop, so you have to adjust for it.
Well, that's already been taken into consideration on engagements that are shorter than that. Is obviously you
Right.
have to go, like these guys, when they know their rifle, they know exactly what that round does in that rifle at whatever distances.
Mhm.
So you know that if it gets out to a certain range, whether it be 1,100 yards or 1,200 yards, these long shots, but within a mile, yeah, you're going to have bullet drops. So they have to adjust for that. The mil-spec dots on the scope are exactly for that, windage and elevation drop.
Right.
So when somebody says their rifle is sighted in at 300 yards and it's a small caliber, you've already taken into account by natural sighting what that bullet drop is going to be. The
Yeah.
Coriolis effect is on top of that, which now means that you're doing extravagantly more additional math to incorporate what the bullet drop is on top of the idea that if you're shooting against or into the rotation, it's going to change that bullet drop to the
Can you
target
imagine that
because the
that
target's
Navy
moving.
SEAL, that Navy SEAL out there on the field at a target 2.2 miles away, he's got his fucking calculator out. He's like, wait, Coriolis effect and drop, and all right, take this. Oh, fucking
That's-
dude, now.
Dude, that's exactly what they do, though. And that ShyTac intervention, the spotter, because a sniper team never goes out by themselves, they always have a spotter. And the spotter usually makes all those calculations for them while they're dialing in their scope. He reads
Right.
off the distances and windage and all of that stuff. And then he sets his scope up and he does the shooting, because a shitload of it is just intuition. It is knowing that rifle and that feel and knowing when you need to click that trigger. But the idea is that this ShyTac intervention not only shot 2.1 miles, but he did it with a computer. The gun and scope were hooked up to a computer. And so he could type in his calculations. It's this far. And it would already, the algorithm would already put into effect the Coriolis effect. It would put in, you type in what the windage is, and then it would tell you on the screen what to set your scope in. And the idea was that it was compact enough with a breakdownable rifle that a one-man sniper team could go nest up, engage targets from way farther away than they could engage him without having to have a spotter, or if his spotter went down, he had the availability to make those shots. But like you said, until you see it in person, I completely respect that. Unless you observe it, you're going to call bullshit.
Right. And to that guy that was on YouTube, I can't remember your screen name, dude. Everybody's screen names on YouTube are fucking weird. But he was kind of complaining about the flat earth debate. And he's like, could you get a less educated panel of people? I'm like, probably, but these are the best because I'm a fucking courier. I just got done delivering packages all day. I don't know what I'm doing.
Was he
We're just
making
talking
fun
shit.
of all of us? Because there were just two people.
No, he was just talking about the main opponents in it. But I was just like,
oh, okay,
no,
that's
dude, we're just a
fair,
bunch
'cause I
of
was
dumb.
like, we weren't even arguing.
We're
about
just
it.
normal people. No, they weren't educated panel. Like, why didn't you?
We're
go
talking
talk
about
shit on
flat Earth
Twitter?
here. I mean, you
No,
can't.
he's a nice guy.
I know,
we
but as
mended.
far as being educated, when he's talking about the education / indoctrination system, he's not. You can't learn flat Earth that way. So I'm not even a flat earther. I don't care.
Yeah,
But
my point in
either
saying that
way.
though was, like we're doing tonight, just a bunch of people having a conversation. If you
Yep.
have a problem with it, that's fine. I won't know who you are.
Which
Ben,
I
your
don't.
next-
I don't see how people shit on that, because when the camera isn't rolling, this is exactly what regular people who are not experts talk about. They talk
don't
about
believe
shit that they don't know about because it's rattling around up there in their noodle, and they're trying to wrap their brain around somehow this thing that they can't understand. It's what normal people do. Like,
Yeah.
If we have an expert on, great. We fucked up one. We fucked up one. But at the same time, I'm like, yeah, but isn't that the whole point? Is the idea that we're going to have people on that want to talk about this that are at least more educated than we are on it. Okay, so to the third point, this was a different conspiracy that I had heard very recently. So everybody heard about the Eisenhower Accord, where he supposedly made a deal with the aliens back in, I don't know if it was right after World War II or whatever. And all of a sudden you have Roswell and a whole bunch of shit, both politically, government wise. Everything starts to kind of really take shape into what we have today. You have, originally the OSS, now it's the CIA. You had the implementation of the NSA. And then you also had 1951, I think it was like 36 or 38 countries all unanimously agree that they will protect Antarctica.
Mm-hmm.
And they still are. And you haven't heard a
Right.
fucking thing about that. So the Eisenhower Accord is the idea that he made a deal with these aliens. And the reason why they came down was because they saw nuclear weapons. Now, the first initial argument I heard is, but why the hell would they care about nuclear weapons when they can clearly bend space and time? And, you know, obviously they have better tech than we do. They're coming to us. We're not going to them. And the counter argument to that was, right. But just like when we have a meteorite hit and there's elements in that meteorite that we don't have, we have shit that they don't have. Maybe they don't have the ability to make nuclear weapons. And so as soon as that shocked the world at the end of World War II, they were like, oh, they're going to fucking destroy themselves and they have tech. We want that. And so the idea with the Eisenhower Accord is that he made a deal with them. Hey, don't fuck our planet up. And you can do tests on our people, a certain amount per year, the harvest or whatever it was they were called. Now, going into the moon landing, why that's important is I heard a theory that we did actually go to the moon, but we didn't do it by ourselves. And there's audio from the supposed astronauts who saw craft and kind of dialogued or tried to send and receive messages from them. And there's this idea that we did go to the moon, but with help. Where because of the Eisenhower Accord, we needed to get this accomplished. And so there was a deal behind the curtain struck of actually helping us get to the moon with their tech, which was why it all went out without a hitch versus the 10 other Apollos that basically never left the Earth, or if they did, it was very quickly grounded. And I kind of wanted to know what you guys thought about that, because I thought that was kind of interesting.
I mean, you're blowing my mind. I've never even heard of the Eisenhower Accord, and I've never heard about the piggyback with aliens to get to the moon.
Yeah, that was a new one for me on the moon landing, because I've always been like, oh, we didn't fucking go there. And then when I heard this, I was like, oh shit, I hadn't even thought about that.
A little
Timeline
indirectly, not necessarily a piggyback, but more like we got tech from aliens or whatever to get us to the moon. But then you go back and look at the tech we had back then, and the computer that sent them to the moon had less computing power than a calculator now. Somehow that fucking worked.
Yeah, but they could have had the tech and not shown us the tech that they had.
Right, that's a possibility too.
For sure.
Which they could have gotten
like,
from Roswell and back engineered
sure.
it.
But they show people this tinfoil box that they're like, check it out. We blasted off to the moon. But they really went in some super high tech thing. Who knows?
Well, and a lot of people, so Mike, I'd be interested to get your view on this, but a lot of flat earthers think the moon is either fake, a projection, a hologram, or it's a 3D spherical object, and the Earth is still flat. And the great argument I love hearing people say about that is, oh, the planets are round, but the Earth is flat. And he's like, oh, your light bulb's round. Does that make your floor round? No, it makes it flat still. So I love that. But as far as the moon goes, there's a lot of flat earthers, especially in this community, that are a little torn on that, because they're like, as a flat earther, obviously they didn't go to the moon, or they're like, maybe they could have gone to the moon because maybe it is a sphere that's up there and it's just a dust ball or whatever the fuck it is.
It would be the same as like a group of mice creating a flying machine to get to the top of the light bulb in the cage they're in. I don't know.
They come back down. You did not fucking go to that light bulb, dude.
Well, I heard an astronaut say that above 80,000 feet, you can't see any stars, nor can you see the moon. You can only see the sun, and the sun looks like it's extremely far away compared to how we see it through the atmosphere. Because through the atmosphere, it's magnified, and it looks a lot closer. But once you're past 80,000 feet, it's just blackness. There's nothing else. You can see everything that's below. And then the highest that we can go is 120,000 feet. And as far as what I think the moon is, I really don't know. I only see what I see, and I see the same side of the moon every night, sometimes throughout 24 hours a day for a few weeks out of the year. And you can see it night and day, and it's the same side of the moon. And I've pointed that out with other people. And then it came up recently that there's a reason why we see the same side of the moon, that it just follows the same trajectory, but we just for some reason it never turns, even though in the past
they say the moon does spin, but it spins at the exact rate the Earth does, which is really fucking convenient.
Yeah, but if you see it through a 24-hour cycle, then you would see a different part of the moon at some point, you know.
You
So
would think,
that,
yeah.
yeah, like
Well, and then
it's
there's-
never
But
been
all this shit
explainable.
flying through space too. I mean, so if you did an experiment with this, with a ball that was rotating, and then you had a ball rotating around it, and you could probably set it up to where that face was there, but then throw shit at it. Just throw like fucking little pebbles at that little experiment and keep going. And then you tell me if it stays the same and rotates the same every single day.
Not
That
just
makes no
rotation,
sense.
but the I've heard them bring up the circle craters on the moon. If those were all asteroids, there's no way that they would all hit perfectly dead on. That some would glance and make kind of a trail or something.
Even
you know?
if they did, it would fuck up the rotation in some way, I guess is my point. Like if
Yeah,
those
right.
pebbles I'm talking about are the
some
asteroids
of
and
those
space
craters are
junk.
fucking big.
But if you just like throw shit at that, I can't imagine that it would just stay perfectly steady the whole time.
well,
I
yeah,
don't know.
it's a vacuum and it's
And
science.
Joe, you brought up an argument a while ago when we were talking. I don't remember who it was. And I took a video in my car on the way home of when you clearly see within, I would say, a good 45-degree angle. It's not like some close to 180 degree or anything like that. But you can clearly see the moon right here. And you can see the sun fucking right here. And I'm sitting there looking at it and I'm like, well, if the earth is round and I'm right here and I can't even see past the horizon, but I can see both the sun and the moon within literally peripheral eye shot of both. Isn't somewhere on the earth getting fucked
Yeah, you would
if
think.
the earth is round? Because somebody doesn't have the sun or the moon at that exact moment. With how supposedly big the earth is, if I can see both right fucking there.
You know what's weird about that is, sorry to drop Moral Bob's name so much. This is free advertising for you, buddy. Hidden in plain sight is his podcast. He brought up something great. Our buddy Drew Misson from Missing the Point. He lives down in Australia, and they both saw from where Moral Bob lives in Texas and Drew lives in Australia. They both saw the sun and the sky at the same time, which is logistically impossible if the globe is what we're told it is, because
That
there's
should
no
not
way.
happen.
No, there's no way from the other side of the earth that they should both have the sun in the sky at the same time. Granted, it was low in the sky, but I mean, I'm sure there's science to debunk that. Like I said, we're just ding dongs here. Mikey, I did want to get you. I brought this up on a couple shows now, but we're in the flat earth realm now. So fucking whatever. We can go on to Anne Heche later. But
I regret it. I regret saying flat earth. No,
No,
we
it's
love
cool.
this shit.
It's
no. I
interesting. It's
do
something
too.
people should open their mind to, because even though I, again, don't care, it's fun. It's interesting. It's something to think about. It at least, even if you don't believe in it, open your mind to it. It's
Just look at it. It's way better than watching the Kardashians. I promise you.
And it's
Oh,
way better
God,
than
yeah.
watching what you're told and saying, this is true, this is real, without doing any research whatsoever. If you want to prove that the earth is a ball, go do your own research and feel good about it if you're so angry about flat earth. That's why I don't care, because I like both arguments.
That's what's
It's
funny
fine.
is that
I love to believe in space. I want to fly a fucking spaceship someday. I would be highly disappointed to find out the earth was flat.
and you can't play Star
Sorry.
Fox in real life. God damn it.
Right? Yeah, that's all I want to do. I want to do
Oh,
real
God.
life Star Fox.
No, that is funny though, because a lot of the hardcore, we'll call them true earthers instead of flat earthers, because there's too much stigma with flat earth. The true
Yeah.
earthers, a lot of those were hardcore globers, and then they started like fuck these people. I'm gonna go in and like you said, losing sleep. I'm gonna prove these fuckers wrong, and then you're like, oh shit, they actually make some good points. Fuck me.
Yeah, I used to love going to the space centers and going to the science centers, and I was into all that shit, like hardcore. Like, look, my logo was a fucking astronaut. You know,
No, hey,
Like-
babe, you're an
I
astronaut.
was just gonna say that my kid said that he wants to work for NASA, and I was like, fucking what? And he's like, yeah, I want to be like, what do they call those guys that they don't work at NASA, but they go up in the spaceships? I'm like, you literally want to be an astronaut? You shitting me?
Dude, no, for real. That would be great. That would be the best cover. You can just debrief him on everything that we talk about on the show, and then be like, yes, kiddo, you're going to be a fucking astronaut, and you're going to report
I
back
treaded
everything you
very
see there.
carefully on that, only because we were in the car on the way home, and I was like, I just got off work. We'll save this for a show. But he's 10. So in 2 years, he's going to want to be a fireman. And 2 years after that, he's going to be like, fuck it, I guess I'm not going to college.
I hope he wants to be an astronaut forever because
I-
I want to know what's really going on at
Lonnie,
NASA.
I'm gonna wait off
Lonnie
him.
has said he wants to be an astronaut since he was 4, and he has not budged from it. He has a whole
The
plan to go try
indoctrination
to
is
be a.
strong.
He has a
He'll
whole
make
plan
good money.
Yeah, he has a. Yeah, tell them lies. He has a whole plan about going into the Navy, getting his fighter pilot's license, doing that for a little while, and then getting out, continuing his training. They have to be fit anyway. He's like, yeah, I want to do all that. I don't think you're big enough for that ride. I think you have to be over a certain height, buddy.
I wonder where he
like-
got those extravagant plan making skills from. Huh.
Not me.
Internet.
Definitely not Ben. I'll be brief. Yes. Anyway, I was going to go somewhere with that. God damn it, I forgot. Brain fart. Oh, wait. I haven't done it in a while. Brain fart. I talked over it so that
Jesus Christ.
people don't get mad about it.
I'm definitely going to investigate the whole Coriolis effect.
Awesome. I
'Cause
would. I'm
that does
interested in
interest
hearing
me.
it. Yeah.
I mean,
I
you-
actually
you
just
can-
Googled it.
You can make a mathematical equation out of anything and just plug
Right.
in what you want people to perceive. Because, like you said, he hooked up his weapon with a computer, which is pre-programmed by someone up above, because they don't want people to wake up and realize, oh, we're on a flat plane. You know.
Well, I mean, to be fair, the Coriolis effect was definitely something that they had put into place prior to the computerization, and actually, it was when you actually did have to do the math on like a sketch pad,
Yeah.
or know it in your head. But yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing, is that every time something like that pops up, and I go, I want to know what people say about this on both sides of the aisle, because I could totally see it going either direction. And 100%, I could see this being a mathematical equation where it's called the Coriolis effect, and this is the description, but really what you're evaluating and changing on your shot actually has something to do with completely different.
Yeah, it's
And-
like programming. Anything in computer programming, you could make that in a video game. You could just
Right.
tell the characters,
They
this
do.
is the Coriolis effect, and then you
Yeah.
program it so that when they shoot something, it's like do whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah, you can. I say that all the time. You can create the math
Like-
and just
it's like
make it
Angry
work
Birds.
whatever you want.
No, that's literally
Yeah,
how they do a lot of these things. Is they find something and they're like, we think it's this, and then they make the math work around that, not the other way around. Not where they're like, okay, the math has to work for this to be true.
Yeah, but
no,
then
they
they
work the
tell
other way around.
the people, and the people see it, and it really happens. So of course they're going to believe that what they're seeing is what they're told, because when they do that thing, it happens.
Well,
Scary.
It's like numerology.
Mikey, what you
Yeah.
said was funny. Somebody up above them, could have programmed that computer for the shot. That makes you sound like a crazy conspiracy theorist who think there's a bunch of people that are just like in cahoots. And I've heard people say that too. They're like, oh, you know how many people would have to be in on the joke if this was true? I'm like, yeah.
Exactly.
You know how
Yeah.
many people graduate college every year? There's a
Yeah.
lot of them. They're all in on it, but
Yep.
they don't know
Whether they
They're-
know it or not.
Yeah, exactly. So I remembered what I was gonna say. I remember bringing this up on a couple shows ago, but it was a new one for me, and it was, why do we see Venus in the morning if Venus is between us and the sun? So I think what we're told is that we see planets and shit because they're reflecting sunlight. So if we see Venus come up in the sky before the sun, how are we seeing Venus so goddamn bright if the sun's on the opposite side of Venus? Have you ever heard that one?
I have heard it when Bob talked about it.
That's where I heard it. Exactly.
Yeah, I've seen Venus, but I never thought that we weren't supposed to be able to see it. I just took it for granted. Like, oh yeah, there's Venus, but
I know,
never
that's why it
thought
was
anything
huge
about
to
it.
Exactly. So, and people would be like, oh, that's because you're assuming that's Venus that you're looking at. That's a planet. I'm like, no, I'm assuming that's what they tell me it is. That
Well, it's a gas planet, I think, too, and so are stars, according to what they
which
say.
means you can't
Again,
land on them.
I don't think you could land on Venus. I mean, maybe, but
we
it
ever
seems
sent a
like
probe
it's.
there?
I don't know. I don't think so. They make it sound like it's made of.
You can land on gas if it's in a
Dry ice.
container.
Yeah,
Yeah. So that's
sure. And again, I'm not saying
Jupiter
it's
being
real
a
or
gas
not, but
giant. Like,
but
so
you
it's
can
just all
see-
gas,
You can see Jupiter, you can see Mars, you can see Venus, you can see all these planets.
and they look spherical.
No, remember the stars that we've talked about? The
Oh,
stars
yeah.
did not look like stars. They
Yeah.
looked like electricity
That's why
happening.
a reason I got a telescope, because I'm like, I'm gonna look at this shit myself. Of course, it's a shitty telescope, and I have to sit there for hours trying to zoom it in and focus and shit. But from what I've seen of the moon, it does appear to be round. It does appear to be lit up. That's all I know. That's what I can observe.
It appears to be round on the face side we can see. It appears to be a circle, not necessarily a sphere. I would say that.
Right.
I said it was
Yeah.
round. It was rotund.
It is a moon plate.
It's
was
round
a
in a
Rotund
circle.
and round are not the
It was
same.
a
Well,
buxom light.
But you also have in 1965, prior to us actually quote unquote going to the moon, I don't remember who the scientist was. He was a foreigner, worked at NASA, and they asked him about landing on the moon. He said that's never going to happen. And they were like,
Oh,
why?
yeah.
And he's like, because it's not solid.
It's plasma.
It's plasma. And then there's basically moon dust stuck to the plasma. And this was also like, I don't know, a year after they started partnering with Disney, which I just
Mhm.
find absolutely hilarious that several years before the supposed moon landing, they partnered with fucking Disney, who at the time was the leader in making shit be real that's not real. And then you
With
look
very
at
terrible hand drawings.
and then you look at the cameras that they used for the supposed moon landing, and it's cross section cameras like they would use on a movie set. And
Mhm.
when they're running and it looks like they're floating, if you speed it up ×2, it just looks like men running, which they
Yeah.
did have the technology for, is slowing it down to a half speed. So if you multiply that by 2, you get a full speed, and it just looks like men fucking running in pajamas. And like all of this shit, there's way too much there to say, yeah, we went to the moon. That's why we haven't gone back, because they lost the fucking tech. Bullshit.
And
God, it sounds like
Yeah.
this reminds me of a teenager getting in trouble. Like you find out that a kid in your house has been lying to you for so long, and you're like, oh my fucking God, are you serious? You had me believing you were great. I loved you. And now you're like, you're fucking grounded, bitch. You're done.
And they're like, go fuck yourself.
I mean,
Yeah.
look at the music industry right as the moon landing was happening. I mean, fucking Pink Floyd was playing as they were in space. I mean, they played the song
President.
Moonhead in 1969. So it was a 7.5 minute song, and I mean that was actually their first. Nobody knew who they were in 69. It wasn't until 73 when they came out with Dark Side of the Moon, which was another space driven like album. But David Bowie came out with what did he come out with? I think it was the Byrds that came out with Armstrong, Aldrin, and
it's Elton
Collins.
John.
And then
Elton John.
Rocket Man, that was in 72 or 72 or 73. And then
There's a lot of space inspired shit back then. The cars even look
I
like
was just about to
rockets.
say
back
that. The Bel
dude,
Air.
the Kinks had a fucking space song, and in 71, I think. Like all these space, they had to support the space agencies because people were questioning the validity of the moon landing,
Right.
and so they needed entertainment to come in and just brainwash these fuckers, and they had to really penetrate and get LSD into the college scene and get people to just really believe in all this shit. So they needed the music to just solidify it, and then of course Star Wars and Space Odyssey and all those movies. I mean, fucking
And that's
MTV.
that's a whole other thing that now is supposedly declassified that everybody was screaming about for a long time was the MK Ultra program, the LSD experiments on both willing and unwilling subjects from 1955 to 1975. I'm like, it doesn't matter if it's real or not. It's the idea that all of this shit was done to all of us to make us think whatever the fuck it was that they either wanted us to know then or wanted us to know now. Either way you look at it. Yeah.
So
Why would they
before
lie?
Actually, no, they do lie every once in a while. It's very rare, and they do own up to it. But it's very rare.
Yes.
So before we get into MK Ultra, that's a great segue actually, because Mikey actually sent me an article, and it's about the Anne Heche thing. And if anybody's been following that since months ago, whenever it happened, we can get into that. But as a starter to that, in Project Monarch and MK Ultra, what do you think about MK Ultra back then versus what it is now. Because my opinion is that back in the 50s or whenever they started that, that was kind of a beta run on a small scale. And they're like, oh, we actually don't need acid. All we have to do is show them these flashing images on a screen and certain frequencies and words and catchphrases, and we fucking got them. Like, it's super easy. You don't
Well,
even
and
need
they did it in the movie theaters with subliminal cuts. A one frame cut that showed popcorn and Coke at a certain
Right.
point in the movie where your eyes to your brain
Start.
didn't see it, but your brain saw it anyway, and everybody would be getting up to go get Coke and popcorn to drive up the sales, and then they made it illegal. And it's like,
right.
okay,
Since you weren't data mining back then and looking at the sales
absolutely,
of certain things and like,
absolutely.
oh, this fucking works. Yeah.
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 But yeah, I mean, I've been recently getting into like the whole MK Ultra thing, and there was like 46 sub operations that came from MK Ultra, and they were all using the 60s movement, the Woodstock and all this stuff, and it just really just continued. And then Project Monarch is actually a spinoff from that project, and all these like celebrities who have these like multi-personalities, you know, like Slim Shady, Eminem, Beyonce, and her other personality. What Anne Heche had another personality that she had admitted to having. I forgot what she called herself, but it meant heavenly. That was the definition of the name, celestial or Celestia. That was her alter ego. And
A
according
lot of
to
celebrities have those.
yeah, so she was, I mean, some people say, I don't know how true this is because, you know, we haven't been 20 years from whatever this point in time. So, CIA hasn't released that document yet. But a lot of these recent, entertainers, I mean, they all have these like personalities. So what I'm thinking is that they tried to get rid of her because, in 2014, CIA admitted that they had the technology to be able to take over a car. I mean, they couldn't drive it, but they could access the computer of a vehicle and then control like the speed. They can control like the, they could lock the steering wheel. They could, do all sorts of stuff. And so what I'm kind of thinking is that they sped Anne Heche into a house, because the autopsy just a couple of days ago, I mean, it just reported that she had nothing in her system, because at the original time that she died in September of 2022, they said that she had cocaine, she had, fentanyl and marijuana in her bloodstream, but it turns out that she didn't have anything in her bloodstream at all. So why the hell would she just go bananas and just drive herself going 100 miles an hour into a very narrow part of the street? So it's very interesting how all of that. I mean, yeah, right there. Anne Heche toxicology report.
They initially, or the alternative media said she was being chased, right? Did you hear that?
I heard that too, but I don't. No one had even mentioned that. But it could have just been road rage, Who really knows?
I drive for a living.
Maybe
People drive crazy for
It
no
looked
fucking
like a
reason.
super residential neighborhood. And was there a car that passed by? Because we saw a Ring camera or something.
I think it was
Yeah.
Ring footage of a car zipping by. That's what I was saying. I think
I
before
lived half a mile from where she got in that accident. That's how
Damn.
close. So it's impossible to drive at that speeds, because at that time of day that she died, I mean, the traffic is just so horrendous, except for that one street that she just flew by, and then you can hear her car hitting something. But the way that the media reported that she was on cocaine and that she was burnt beyond recognition, but then when they were pulling her on the gurney and into the ambulance, there was no signs of any burns on her, and she was flailing like she was trying to get off the gurney, and they shoved her back down and then pushed her into the ambulance.
Well, yeah, I mean, it says in the second paragraph right there, a urine toxicology screen of urine was positive for cocaine, cannabinoids, benzodiaz, whatever, and fentanyl. The coroner's office said in a report issued Tuesday. However, those drugs were in her system from previous use or administered to her in the hospital.
Wait,
and
what hospital was she going to that they gave her cocaine? Because
therefore was no evidence of impairment by illicit substances at the time of the crash. So
but I mean, they would have to give stats for that. They'd have to say how much was in her system that they found for me to get that. I get what you're saying, Ben. I was reading that one too. Go back to that.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. It seems like they're trying to say her urine was positive for all of this. However, there was so little of it in her system, or it was given to her by the hospital, but there's no differentiation there. It's kind of it's a weird paragraph.
There's no
for
real
me.
bell curve. Yeah, I was gonna actually comment on how weird this was worded, because it's like was unimpaired. Like they're saying she was totally stark, naked, sober during the time of the accident, but then her urine toxicology screen was positive for cocaine, cannabinoids, benzodiazepines, and fentanyl. So it was,
how long does cocaine stay in your system? I'd like to know that, because I would bet my ass that
3
the
days.
hospital did not administer that to her.
I would hope not. But
So that's a previous use one. All right,
Kinda hope so.
cannabinoids. Okay, that's a previous use one. Benzodiazepines. Is that something the hospital would give her?
yes, benzos are
okay,
like Xanax.
but
something like
look
Okay.
at the difference in timeline there. It's either something from previous or administered to her in the hospital.
Like,
Yeah, I
why
get
would they
that.
do
Those
that?
Those are two wildly different time frames of the supposed toxicology report.
Yeah, this article is very carefully worded
Mhm.
and like crafted like a fucking spell that these reptilians do. Like it's just
Intentionally written to confuse the reader,
Yeah.
because we're confused.
very confusing. Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm pretty
Right.
easily confused.
Well,
though,
because
dude.
why would, after everything in our community, this is what makes me sketched out. After everything we've seen in our community about Anne Hesh, she was trying to out the pedophile ring or something
Yeah, I
like
think
that.
so.
Oh,
She
that's
had a
happened to a lot
movie
of people.
coming out. Yeah, she had a
Yeah.
whole movie coming out on that. I didn't dig that deep into it, but then she died. A lot of people, like Mikey was saying, saw that she was flailing on the gurney. I didn't see that, but I heard about it. And now they're coming out on USA Today and saying that that's actually a thing. What are they doing?
It's like
Like,
saying
why
that
are they letting us see
asymptomatic
this stuff? That's what scares me.
transmission is normal, and that's always happened, except before 2020, nobody knew about it.
Yeah, but then in 2022, they're like, actually, the vaccines don't work and they don't reduce the
No,
spread.
it's gaslighting on
So-
a mass fucking scale. They're like, no, this has never happened before, and then it happens, and they're like, no, this has always happened. You're crazy if you think it hasn't.
Right.
It's
That's
like,
why with the
what?
whole Anhesh thing, like, I get it. I think she was probably murdered, but we all kind of saw that and they said that was not a thing, and now they're saying it's totally a thing. I feel like they're shortening the time frames between when they release the true information and the false information. That's getting shorter, and that's scary
Right.
to me. Where they're like, how many people still will believe it even when we tell them they were right the whole time?
Yeah, there could be more data harvesting or just more, let's experiment. Let's see what happens here. How many people believe this? Yeah.
Well,
In
okay. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, tying into that, I was looking into the Paul Walker when he died in 2013. They had that technology. They just had not reported on it for a whole year. So it is possible, because he also had a nonprofit organization, and he was helping the Haitians the same time that the Clintons did, or Hillary Clinton. She had a foundation down there, but it turned out that her office up in Maine, there was no people there. It was just a office with nobody in it. I mean, there was no operating office at all. And so when he got down there, he discovered that the Clinton Foundation wasn't actually helping anybody in Haitian, the Haitians at all. So he was going to let that out, possibly. And so she, with the power that she had, she could have easily said, we'll take him out, do whatever you have to do. And so they could have easily just taken over his vehicle. I mean, it was a Porsche, and, wrecked his vehicle, or they like even the video. I mean, there was like a little split second of a missile that looks like a missile coming in and blowing up his car. So there's two things that could have taken him out.
Well, and
Yeah.
there's more with those kind of celebrity deaths. For instance, and I just looked it up to verify the dates before I misspoke. Chris Cornell died in May of 2017. Chester Bennington died in July of 2017. Both of them were known to be very good friends. They would tour together, they would sing together, and they were both collectively working on a documentary against pedophilia in Hollywood.
Yep.
And then they died.
Yep.
2 months apart.
Very crazy.
That's so crazy, people. I mean, what the fuck? Look at the way that we look at the world, and we just kind of believe the stuff we see. We want to because it's comfy. But then when we're
Mhm.
told something's fucked up, yeah, maybe we're like, oh, okay, I'll look into that. Or that seems kind of off. But we still try to stay on the straight and narrow of the path that we believe is true because we've been told that and it's comfy. It's so uncomfortable to get out of that place. And I feel like a lot of people are just like not willing because they're still
Right.
pushing this stuff.
The
Why is
more-
it still
The
happening?
more I get out of the comfort zone ideologically, the more I'm like, this is fucking awesome. Because this is something I've never thought of before.
Yes.
Like,
100%
bring it
agree.
on. Bring on your QAnon shit. Like, tell me how you think the white hats are going to help everything. It's going to be great.
It doesn't matter if you believe it either. I'm not saying that I
Yeah.
think QAnon's great or what. No, but it's interesting. It's better than
That's what I
just.
mean.
It's
Come
better
tell me
than
about it.
boxing yourself up and saying, "No, I believe what I believe. Go away."
Well, that's the
It's
thing. When you
easier to just say believing in yourself and then having discernment, knowing that you have discernment. People don't believe that anymore. They want to be told by the government, and they don't want to believe that they have the ability to tell the difference between what's right and what's wrong. But they all do. Everybody does.
No, they want some. We've talked about this a lot too. Is they want somebody to tell them how to live their life. That way, there's no self responsibility for them, because if something goes wrong, they can be like, "No, Daddy told me not to do this."
Govern me harder, Daddy.
Yes, exactly like that.
Kalina Lex, love you.
and the thing and this is what we've talked about multiple times, is like when the bedrock foundation of what you have always at least believed or gone along with gets shaken so bad that now you're actually looking into the looking glass and can see something that is clearly not right. When it's on a scale that, even if it's one thing, whether it be the moon landing or 9/11, and you just immediately clearly see, holy fuck, we definitely got lied to. We don't know the truth,
Mhm.
but we know we've been lied to. It's one of those, the burden of proof is on us, and we may never get that proof, but it's the
Right.
idea that there's enough of the unraveling of a lie that immediately, when you've seen that, everything else goes into question. It's like when you think you're in a really great relationship and then you get cheated on. It's like everything gets put into question. Things that you never thought about questioning
Right.
get put into question. And as soon as that happens, yeah, there's this doom feeling. Oh my God, my life was a lie. I thought everything was fine. Now it's not. What the fuck am I doing? And as soon as you get to a place where you're okay, that all, like Joe said, like QAnon or anything else, or flat earthers. No, just kidding. But all this stuff starts to come and enter into your sphere. You end up going, I don't know if that's true or not, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Because at least I know that I'm not being lied to anymore. And when I am lied to, I can see right through it. Again, may not
No,
get the
but
truth.
There's like inception levels to that shit though, because
Yeah.
you can wake up and be like, "Oh, I was lied to about this. I was lied to about my whole life," and then something else comes along, and you're like, "Fuck, I was lied to about that too. I was lied
Yep.
to about the lie. How the fuck does that happen?"
Yeah, but people need to
Dream
stop
within a
beating
dream.
themselves up for that. Like, stop beating yourself up. Yes, you
Right.
got lied to. Yep, you got duped. So, Ben,
Oh, I don't beat
like,
myself up. I smoke a doobie and get on with my day.
Ben and I have had similar experiences, though. When you get fucking cheated on or you get fucked over in a relationship, you question your own sanity. And you're
Absolutely.
like, who do I even trust? But who do you trust? You trust
Myself.
your damn self. Yes,
Yep.
you're 100% right. You
100%.
trust yourself. You love yourself. You know what's right and wrong. And then when that gut feeling happens again, yeah, it happened once before and you didn't
Right.
act on it. Okay, that's fine. Act on it next time, or at least protect yourself. And we can all do that. I think everybody could do that. Listeners, people here.
Yes. Well, Ben, I know you got to cut out, and Mikey, I know it's late there. Real quick before we get out of here, this is something I've been thinking about a lot lately, and it can be short, just your quick, response on this. But what do you think about clones? Because the point I brought up.
I love clones.
Oh,
This is so random. What the
catnip for
fuck?
clones? No, because we're
I-
about to freak out.
Did not see that coming.
I know.
Ben
But
did a
have a
good
quick-
job and muted himself.
I wanted to get to this with him because
My
I
clone
think-
is my best friend. I call him Cloney.
Oh my
Oh
god.
Bring him over.
No,
Love
what do you
to
Is that
meet
the
him.
what do you think
astronaut?
about that as far as the like the existence of them? Because I think what we were talking about with whoever we were talking about is that they've had the technology to clone shit since the 90s. So what do you think the chances are that not only did they figure that out way the fuck before we knew about it in the 90s, but that now it's at a human level, or it could have been at a human level for a long time? Do you think there's clones out there, Biden?
Absolutely. I don't doubt that there are clones. It, I kind of look at especially celebrities like you just kind of look at them and see the changes, like Dave Chappelle. I mean, I don't know. I don't know for sure. Honestly, it's just a hunch.
He does look different, but he could just be
Yeah.
off track
His
now.
personality hasn't changed. It's not like he's drastically changed as far as his views go.
No, he's still black.
Well,
What?
You also have to take into nice.
That's not
You
what
also
I mean. His
you also have to take
comedy-
into account that non-clones look plastic because of plastic surgery.
Right.
Yeah, like look
Joan
at Gwen
Rivers.
Stefani. I mean, Gwen Stefani's gorgeous. She's like 52 or something, and she looks like she's 25. She looks like she could get up and sing, "I'm just a girl
She's
again."
just a girl.
Yeah.
Oh,
And I don't
my
fault her
God.
for that. I don't care if someone wants to get plastic surgery. That's great. If you still look good and you can afford it,
I have a
man,
problem with it.
flip-fantastic.
I was about to
Not
say
for you, me.
I judge.
Have you watched
Yeah,
that movie
totally.
with Paul Rudd called Living with Myself? If you haven't seen it, you have to see
Uh-uh.
it.
I don't think
It's
so.
it's a
Love him.
tell on how cloning is absolutely possible. And then Tom Brady's in there, and he admits he's been in the facility 6 times, and he's he had 6 rings already.
Yes, we did see that. We 100%
Oh, we did? I drink a lot.
Is it when you meet Tom Brady at the end and he's like, "Oh, it's the go," or whatever? Like, I don't know. I'm pretty sure. Like, I've
Yeah.
seen that.
I haven't
Tom
seen
Brady.
it. I know that.
Yeah.
Tom-
I'll have to
Yeah.
watch that.
Just kidding. Sports ball. I love it. Yay.
Living with myself, because he
Right.
went to the cloning facility. I can't. I think it was his girlfriend was trying to like revitalize his life, but he didn't realize what. In order to refresh his life, they actually kill him, the original him, and replace him with a clone, which is. And then he wakes up in the
Sounds a lot
forest.
like
Is his consciousness inside of that clone?
Yeah. So it's
Oh,
like a duplicate of him.
Living with Yourself, the TV series.
It's a movie.
Yeah. What's that one?
Oh, I just looked it up. It's Paul Rudd, but it's Living with
What is it,
Yourself,
8
and
episodes?
it's 8 episodes. Yeah, is that the same thing?
Is it a series? I
think
guess
so,
It'd
it's
just be a
man.
really long movie that they cut up into 8 parts.
Yeah. So Upload. There are so many shows that talk about cloning. Remember
I'm so
Upload?
tired of the
Like, he
series.
uploads
That's
his-
what I was thinking of.
He
Yeah.
uploads himself into, well, his girlfriend basically has him killed because they're in a car crash where the self-driving car crashes them into another car, and then they cut his head off and upload his consciousness, and the girlfriend has financial control of his entire experience as a dead person. But it's
Whoa.
his consciousness that's uploaded. Have you seen it?
No, that doesn't
Wow, that
sound
sounds
familiar at
terrible.
all.
Dude, it's called Upload. It's a super funny show, but it's very Black Mirror-ish, and I feel like they've been pre-programming us for this. for
Oh,
so long.
absolutely.
Absolutely.
Nothing is by accident. Nothing
Like
is
the
just,
Matrix.
Yeah, it's all to just numb us to what's going to happen.
Everybody
when you
always
see it,
sees.
Make us think it's
You're like,
awesome.
oh, I see this in a movie. It's cool.
I know everybody always sees a new
Yeah.
movie that comes out with a great concept, and they're like, "Oh, that's such an original concept." It's like, are you shitting me? They've already gone through all the trials with this in real life. All they're doing is they're just making the water a little bit more
No,
tepid for you.
they're just showing
So
you what they've been working on. It's like,
Yeah.
look at this.
But
Oh,
the
no, it's
episode
sci-fi.
San Junipero in Black Mirror is literally geared towards not boomers, but people who are our age. They're in their 30s, 40s, who grew up kind of listening to 80s, 90s music and thinking that the internet was really cool and new because it was new to us. The whole episode, have you seen that episode, Mikey? San Junipero from Black Mirror?
No, I haven't watched Black Mirror at all.
Oh, Oh,
Okay,
you need to do that.
So you should watch it, and only because
I haven't either. It's okay.
Only
Oh,
because
you
it's-
need to do that.
it's what they're trying to seed into
my
people's heads. They're trying to make it seem like all of these things are really cool. So San Junipero, when I watched that episode, I'm like, oh my God, if I was in a nursing home, 100% would upload my consciousness. That would be awesome. This was 2012 or 15 or whenever it came out. It was a long time ago.
It was a
Now,
great episode.
it was, but fuck no. Now I would never ever upload my consciousness. But when it
No,
came
that's just
out,
mine.
yeah, but they were trying. My point is, they were trying to change people's minds into thinking that this is a fantastic idea. And now, since I have an open mind, I'm like, oh nope, sorry, I'm going to dodge that bullet while I can. But they make it look like it's really fun to do so. So
course.
check it out.
That
for sure.
is the pre-program.
And also, okay, so you should watch Nosedive, White Bear.
White Bear is the best.
That's
Oh,
that's
shit.
like my favorite one, Ben. That's my
Absolutely.
You and I, like have that like
It's so
like,
fucked.
revenge
Oh, man.
kind of thing. Yeah. So Black Museum, White Bear, USS Callister, and Nosedive. Check those
If
out.
you
I
like,
never
if you
heard
like,
of any of those.
well, no, those are all
Oh,
Black Mirror episodes. So
They're all
Oh,
Black
okay, okay.
episodes. Yeah, yeah.
if you
They're all
enjoyed
good.
Star Trek,
Yeah. Oh, I love Star Trek.
the
You'll
USS
love
used to.
USS
Callister.
Callister. Yeah.
Yes, it's a good
Super.
one. So just look
They have
up
a
Black
good-
Mirror, White Bear, San Junipero, USS Callister, all of those. Those are all ones that I would start
Just
with, and you'll
actually,
end up watching the rest of them.
You don't even need to take notes. Just watch all of them because they all are pertinent.
They are, but
Well-
there are a few that I would watch over and over, and there's a couple
Right.
I'm like, nah, I got a little bit from that, but not much. There's
So
a
they're
lot
all
of
worth watching once, though.
they
Oh,
are, but there's a lot
another
of
good one was
programming involved in those-
Archangel.
Archangel. Okay.
Archangel. Oh, that's me. I'm Jodie Foster. Hi. Yeah.
We've been into Westworld, which is freaking awesome.
I need to watch that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Great symbolism in that one, too.
Westworld, it's so funny. I didn't want to watch that show because I was afraid because they talked about the torturing and
Oh,
whatnot.
yeah, torture.
And I watched it and I'm like, oh, fuck yeah. I hope these machines kill all these humans.
I gotta pee really bad.
Dude. No, I know. We're cutting it out. Dude, thank you so much
Okay,
for coming
sorry.
on. Tell everybody
Thank
where
you.
they can find you and your fine ass.
You can find KGUP Presents on any podcast platform. And if you want to go to the website and listen to the radio station, watch the podcast, the videos, or listen to the show or whatever, go to www.kgup1065.com. Across the screen, I saw my Instagram.
Oh, yes. Hang on. I
KGUP-FM.
meant to do that. There we go.
Yeah. I hardly ever post because I hate social media. Like,
Fair enough.
As you should.
Well,
it's-
thank you
it's
so much
just
for
a
coming
time
on,
waster.
man. And you're gonna have to come on when we have other panels and stuff like that to
Yes.
throw out some of these ideas and some of the things that you believe with some of the other great, awesome people that we've had on the show.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I mean, I love exploring other topics. I mean, I'm into a lot of stuff. So it's not just flat earth, even though it's like, I feel like it's my foundation,
No
That's-
pun
that's
intended.
totally
Bring your
Dude,
kink box.
Don't be apologetic about your views, dude.
Did I
I love
apologize?
it, man.
No, he did not.
You
At all.
regretted bringing it up, but I thought it made a great fucking
Oh
show. I
yeah,
loved
there's
it.
nothing that's too taboo for this show.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
good.
It triggers some people sometimes, and it's like, oh God. Now I have to
That's
defend
right. That's
myself.
a them problem, not an us
That's
problem.
we get a
Absolutely.
free fuck off salute for those people.
Fuck off. Fuck off. Fuck off.
Wait, one more.
Fuck off.
Thank you.
Nice.
All right, dude. Thank you so much. Thanks everybody on Rockfin and wherever else I post this. I'm not sure yet. I think I'll put it on YouTube. Fuck it, whatever. Right?
I think that this was
Yeah.
a great one for YouTube.
Yeah.
We didn't have anything bannable.
I don't know.
I don't think
I don't
so.
fucking know. Anytime I post something, I don't know whether I'm going to get banned for
You
it.
did
new
mention
day.
COVID, early COVID. So
Oh,
I'm not
shit.
sure if we're gonna get fact checked
But
on that.
sorry, YouTube. Ugh.
But
No.
it was just an observation. It wasn't like I was like saying that it was.
It doesn't
I'm
matter.
totally
They
kidding.
don't care, dude.
Totally joking. I just think that they're like, ooh, he mentioned 2019 and COVID at the same
my
time.
God.
It wasn't even a thing until March of 2020.
I
All right,
mentioned
guys.
Event 201.
Oh, no, yeah, that's banned. Yeah, early banned.
Canceled.
Audio listeners, you can find the video, on Rockfin and also on YouTube. And thank you for listening. We'll have we will have a good night. I don't know about you. You guys fuck yourself.
Thank y'all. Come again.